Hi, everybody. Welcome back to episode 10 of Atypical Art Podcast. Today I have Jessica Hansen with me.
Hello.
Hi. If you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me and thank you for doing this. I think this is an awesome way to promote artists. Um, I'm Jess Hansen. I live in upstate New York. I grew up sort of in the area, lived in California, came back. Um, and let's see, my arts background, I went to SUNY Albany. I was a dual major in English and fine arts and was working while I was in undergrad full time. So ended up dropping fine arts to a minor because the workload was absolutely insane. But then after undergrad, really wanted to go into the MFA program, and SUNY had this awesome new sculpture studio, the Bohr Sculpture Studio.
Okay.
So I applied to have one of the first spots there. There were only like 12 for
Oh
the
my
entire
God.
world. So because I knew all of the professors on the panel, and they were familiar with my work, but I didn't really have a solid body of work yet, they accepted me in as an unmatriculated sculpture student, and allowed me to share a studio with another artist. Yeah, it was really cool, but I was still working, and I was really, really frustrated because anybody who's gone through a formal arts program training, they know that there's a lot of um, competing priorities. I mean, do you work full time so that you can eat and have health insurance, or do you do your art full time so that you can follow your passion and express yourself the way that you have to? And sometimes those things don't really work together. So I never went into the MFA program. I was also really, I felt my work was not what they really wanted to see in the program. And it's not that it was bad work, it was just, when the critique was like, oh, that's a cute idea from a professor who's been there for 20 something years and is well renowned. It's like, wow, you just sucked all the air out of my sails by saying
Oh.
cute. So, I mean, to be an artist, you don't have to go to school. You just don't. And it took me a long time to realize that.
Is that what you like working with the most, sculpture?
Mixed media, I think. Sculpture for sure, because I've always been really drawn to using found objects. What I was doing, and I'm picking back up as soon as the studio that I'm sitting in is finished. Um, I did a lot of like mold making and casting with liquid plastic and silicone, and using found objects in the liquid plastic, and it was clear. So by creating these small modular clear pieces with artifacts suspended inside to create structures out of that. So
Oh, cool.
really ambitious project, and I got like a ton of this stuff done, and I've just kind of carried it around with me for years. So now that I've got the actual space to be really messy and experiment and be okay to fail, like as an artist, you need a safe place to fail, um, because that's where the good stuff happens.
Yeah,
Um, I'll be picking that back up. So
that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that a lot of kids, students in college get so caught up in what the requirements are that they don't really get that opportunity, or they take something that is in the beginning stages of a critique and it just gets shut down. I had so many different ideas that people just didn't understand because it wasn't fully formed yet, and it just got shot down, and it was so discouraging that I just gave up on it until after, when I had a studio space that I could work and fail and then learn from each piece. Oh, this turned out cool, even though I hated overall. Like, this little piece I like, and then build off of that.
Yeah. At the time I was working with, because I was an English major, and I'd acquired this insane library of books. And so I decided, well, I'm really poor and I don't have a lot of money for art materials. Yeah, that's great. I can get found objects for free because I'm finding them.
Yeah.
But the liquid plastic and silicone is expensive. Um, I just started using whatever I could. So I started chopping up my books much to the chagrin of the professors in this beautiful new art studio with new equipment, because I was dulling the blades on the saw. But like, I paid tuition. What did I care? You know, don't come at me with your, oh, you can't cut your books on the saw, but I like what you're doing. You know, come on. And then what kills me is that my ideas were cute, so I abandoned some of them. And then years later, I saw these successful artists using very similar ideas, and people were like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And I'm like, ugh. So schooling and the opinion of others is like, it doesn't really matter.
No. Do what you got to do to get by in school and use what you learned to make your real art, because there's so many. Feel like I say this every time with people I've graduated with. There's so many, in high school even, the real artists were the ones that could draw their perfect selfie, in charcoal or whatever, and all of the like photography slash like abstract art kids were like, they're the weird ones. And then you move into college and it's like, oh, it's cool to be an abstract artist or whatever. And I'm like, okay, great. Like photography is still kind of shit on, but like
Oh, photography is always shit on. I know.
but yeah, and how many of those people are actually still making art and still making the effort? And it's like I wish they were, because it's sad that they're not anymore, because I know a lot of them did have talent, but you have to have that drive and ambition and also like a little bit of a thick skin. So I think
Mm.
that's a good point.
Well, yeah, I mean, like that should be a requirement, like Art 101, how to develop a thick skin, and even though we're your professors and we're here to teach you technically, and to critique you, but to teach students or up and coming artists, or even just artists that are continuing to develop, regardless of where they are in their life, like, hey, you really shouldn't care what other people think.
Yeah.
Like, that should be taught.
I think that critiques are very important, and I was always kind of um, lectured on my attitude during critique. I'm a pretty sensitive person, although, everybody says that I have like, resting bitch face or whatever, but during critiques, I would listen, take notes, and then kind of dismiss it. Like, you got to take from it the good and leave. Oftentimes people would just be like, I don't get it. And it's like, okay,
It's not my
that's not
problem.
the question. Like, that's not my fault that you don't understand. You just have to, and a lot of people, I think, in critiques also don't know how to give good constructive criticism.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you heard, oh, it's good? What does that even mean? Like, that's the most stupid. That's good, that's cute. Like, things like that are just like the most unhelpful critiques ever. I'm gonna have a class on how to give and receive critiques, because that just was one of my biggest pet peeves.
And how to not be a dick, because like, do you know how hard it is to get a, I mean, maybe for some people it's easy, but I find it personally terrifying to show my art, because maybe it's PTSD from grad school, but, getting up there and showing my work in a presentation and slideshow, and even when it's based in research from, you know, talking about other artists who have quote unquote made it, there was like these little laughs that go around the room, or these little whispers. And so there are some art bullies out there. And it's like, dude, you know what? You should be supporting other artists, even if you think you might be a superior artist or whatever, Ugh,
Absolutely.
crazy.
I agree. I think also my teacher told me this and I just rolled my eyes so hard, like I made my head hurt. He was like, art is never finished. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but you have to know when to put it to rest. And even if you have a piece that's finished, you can always be adding it, but then it's like that's such a life draining thing to think that nothing you do is ever finished.
Yeah.
So I think also knowing when to stop and put things to rest. And sometimes you have to put it to rest for years and then pick it back up when you have a space that is easier and more comfortable to create in. I think that that's really important. Um, so I guess we kind of already covered this a little bit, but my next question for you was your advice for artists that were struggling in school.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to say develop a thick skin, and try not to take these authority figures opinions, or even the opinions of your peers, to heart. I mean, you kind of have to listen to what they're saying, try to take the good and use it to your advantage. um, but if you haven't been taught that, that's something that's going to take years, I think, to figure out, unless it's just something that naturally comes to you. There are some people out there who are like very gracious and just like, they're like, oh yes, awesome, thank you. I admire those people. I wish I was like that. I wish I was less quote unquote confrontational, but I want to get to the core of what people think and get some use out of it. But sometimes people don't always have that in their agenda. So understand sort of what the agendas are that are at play, whether you're a student or a working artist, or working on your art whenever you have the time. um, I think too, if you're a student, understand that if you remain true to what you're trying to do in your art and continue pushing forward, even if you're going to make a lot of shit, like just garbage. I mean, that's just the way it goes, right? Be proud of that. So much great stuff comes from honing a technique or a craft, or getting ideas from the failures that we have. Um, so even though I find it terrifying to show my work, I still do it. And I do it even when the work I know isn't finished and I'm not satisfied with it. I often will take work that I've already shown, take it apart, and work on it continuously because I'm not satisfied with it. And you're right, at some point you have to put it down, but only when you're satisfied with it.
Exactly. That's your call to make. I
Yeah.
think also people don't really understand, like, you don't need to not listen to people, but you need to listen to the right people. Like, just because you're showing the person that you're showing your art to doesn't like it, doesn't mean that there's not someone else out there that would really understand it and appreciate it. Like, not all successful artists have 100% people that are their fan base. There's lots of people that don't like it, or they don't understand it and they still like it. I don't think that just because you didn't win an award, or your professor or class didn't like it, doesn't mean that you shouldn't continue forward with the project.
Right.
But I think that's really good advice for young people, especially coming from someone that's, you've had so many different experiences, you've been involved with so many different things. I think that's a good insight, because it's easy, someone fresh out of college say, this is what I did, blah, 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 but who's going to believe me? Um,
I would believe you.
um, so we talked about your sculpture work, but you work with a lot of different mediums. So what are some other things that you enjoy doing?
So, um, I've moved around a lot, and sometimes have lived in very small spaces without any place to work, and so I've had to fall back on sort of, um, I guess, lower profile projects. Like, I don't want to say lower profile, but more mobile projects, right? So, like photography, I consider, you have a camera, you can just get out there and you're working in your medium, right? So, um, drawing, printmaking. Lately, I have been doing a lot of block printing. Let's see. I love painting. I'm not going to say that I'm technically wonderful at realism or anything like that, although I adore photorealist paintings. I mean, I just blows my mind. Like, how are you doing this? Like, I wish I could do this, but that doesn't make me any less, I guess. Everyone has their own style and their own technique. So I've done a lot of things that don't make a huge mess. And the point of building this studio is so that I can make a big mess and build some larger pieces. So um, things have been quiet. When I was in California, I was married. I think I lost a lot of inspiration for carrying on with my art. So there was a time when years went by and I didn't do a damn thing. And that's a real shame. That's a lot of time lost. And it wasn't until that relationship was over that I was like, what am I doing? Why am I just sitting here being stagnant? So I started getting into those easier to manage works. And then when I came back to New York, that's when I started getting back into like the messier stuff, as I call it.
Great. What inspires your work?
Well, it's all emotion, you know. I mean, I think you could look at the events that are going on in the world, and there's certainly outrage there. I look at relationships that have gone poorly in my life, and there's sadness and there's disappointment. Um, but my work has been kind of colorful and cheerful, so it's kind of like a Bell and Sebastian song or a Smith song, right? Like the music sounds super happy, but you listen to the lyrics, oh my God, no. So I think a lot of it just comes from like these sort of polarizing feelings that I have, or these experiences that I've had. And I'm like, oh man, that friendship was so awesome, and then that person did me so dirty. I need to do some art about this. And some people sing about it, some people write about it,
Yeah,
and I art about it.
that's awesome. That's great. Um, you talked about what you want to do with the studio. When is your studio going to be done? I'm so excited to see it.
That is like the running joke. Like, so Um, yeah, so my husband Tom, he's an artist too. He's a photographer. He's a film photographer and amazing. Like his work is just incredible. And so a couple years ago, well, I moved. We got together like 6 years ago. And got married last year, but we've been living together for like 5 years. And when I moved in, you know, when you merge your stuff with somebody else's, like there are rooms filled with crap, and you just have to like just walk away from it sometimes and go, all right, I'm gonna get to it at some point. So in our house, we have an entire room of my art crap, and it's like I need to be able to get this studio done so I can get that stuff out into the studio. He's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, we're gonna get this done ASAP. Well, we have been building this by hand. We explored all options. We looked at prefab structures, everything. And we thought building our own from scratch was going to be less expensive and quicker and easier. Oh, man, you know, that first summer, 2 years ago is when we started this.
Oh my
We,
God.
yeah, we got out there in the yard with a post digger. We dug these 5 foot holes, put in our own sonotubes, mixed the cement by hand, and then poured it. And there's 16 perfectly level like pylons in the ground under this. I mean, this thing is hurricane proof essentially. So
Oh my God.
yeah, so it's taken a while, ups and downs of life and all that. But now that I have all this reclaimed barnwood that's going to go on the walls I can't use for art, and the flooring, it should be just another month or so, and then it's done.
Okay, good.
Long answer,
Just
but
seeing
yeah.
it since you were posting, putting up the sheetrock and stuff like that. Um, so that's great. It's gonna be done soon.
It is. I'm sitting in it now, so it's actually quite beautiful. Uh, it's just blank walls
Oh my,
right now.
that's amazing.
With some nice lights. See the
Beautiful.
ceiling. Yeah, it's. But all that stuff, it looks super undone. But all the stuff that's going up on the walls is ready to go. You know.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Um, yes, we did a studio tour. So we have a lot to talk about with your work with Albany Center Gallery, and that's actually where we met.
Yeah.
What position did you hold then and then now?
Crap. What year was that?
That was 2 years ago.
Okay.
We're
So I initially, well, 2 years ago, was I the board president? Maybe I was outgoing as the board president,
I
but
think you were.
yeah. So funny enough, when I was in sculpture school at SUNY, I worked for Albany Center Gallery. I was a gallery associate. And I started off as a volunteer working with Sarah Cunningham. And she moved on, and then another ED came in and hired me part time. And I also worked under a grant. So the gallery struggled for a long time. It started as a grassroots arts org, not as a business per se. In the 70s and 80s, nonprofits weren't really seen as corporations or businesses that are supposed to turn a profit, but really they are. So it wasn't until Tony really took the helm uh, 8 or 9 years ago that it started to turn around. So 35 years or 33 years of, hey, we're struggling to, let's get our act together. So when I moved back from California, I had a I had a nonprofit administration degree that I could use to be on the board and basically resolve a lot of those issues. And because I'd worked there so many years ago, I loved it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to get involved with an arts organization, it needs to be ACG. Um, so that's kind of where we started. The board kind of got their act together. Not that they didn't have, wait, that sounded really bad. It's not the way I mean it. It's not that they didn't have their act together. It was just like a different perspective, a different way of thinking about approaching, fundraising and finances and all that.
There's a
And
lot of
so,
business aspects, even if it doesn't seem like it. You still got to keep the lights on. You still got to pay your employees and all that.
totally, totally. And anyone who is critical of that doesn't understand that um, employees at a nonprofit, arts organizations included, they work their butts off and they absolutely deserve to be compensated fairly, So there are a lot of people out there who think that nonprofit employees should be volunteers and not paid. So it
Yeah,
just blows my mind. But yeah, so I was the board president for 3 years, and then now I'm just a general director, immediate past president, and yeah, that's my role now.
that's awesome. What are your favorite things, like different events or things that you guys do for the community? What's your favorite part of that?
Right now, the mural project is amazing. I have been banging that drum for years because in the Bay Area, in San Francisco and Oakland, um, there's such a vibrant artistic community and it's super edgy, and people don't really care if they're painting something they don't have permission to paint in an alleyway or on a building. So there's so much amazing street art in the Bay Area. And one of the initiatives out there is to combat blight by doing these incredible murals in blighted neighborhoods so that they would show the value of the area, so that they would help cut down on crime, so that they would attract people to go and visit, this street art. And so when I was on the board years ago, well, still on the board, but when I was talking to the board years ago, I said, yeah, we should really get into this mural game. I'm not taking credit for that at all because I'm sure it was like already happening. There were already murals in Albany.
We
But
want more.
yeah, and now there's more. So there are several organizations. There's the Parking Authority, the Barn, and ACG working with artists to get these awesome things up downtown. Now, if there's all these rumblings of, hey, let's do these studies to see what would happen if we take out the ramps to 787, well, some of the murals would be affected. That's unfortunate, but I approve of that plan because, those the 787 ramps are just ugly. But anyway, so I love the mural project. I can't wait to see more artists do more murals all over the
We
city,
have an
especially.
open call for it now.
Yeah, yep, and there's an open call for it right now. So go to the ACG website and check out that call if you're interested, and just submit whatever ideas you can. I mean, do that. And then the other thing that I really love is the high school regional. Um, so the gallery hosts high school regional art show. I think it's each year, or maybe it rotates, but between venues. But
Here it rotates at the different um
different
like
art venues. So I love it when it comes to ACG. It's one of the most well attended when you go into those receptions, when social distancing ends. Um, it's filled with people, like 300, 500 people, and so many incredible young artists. I mean, the work blows me away. And just to see their faces, they're so excited, and it's just so exciting. I mean, that for me is that's an inspiration. I love
very
seeing how,
encouraging.
yeah.
Um when I was a senior, one of my photographs got accepted, and it was at St. Rose that year, and that was the school I ended up going to. And it was really cool to just like see my work up on the wall, and also see everyone else's. Like these were, students the same age as me or younger or a little bit older. Um, and I met a lot of people that I ended up going to school with, which was cool too. But just to like have like it's such a cool thing to look forward to. Like to have your work, it makes it more real, I think. And
Yeah.
then now seeing kids or younger students like that are younger than me, and me looking at back at that, it's just like keep going, don't stop. Like I just want to tell you like what I wish I could tell myself when I was that age.
Totally. I mean, and the other part about it is that, I appreciate the other exhibits, and I appreciate, obviously working artists and other openings that we have. But it's different when you have a bunch of adults coming through and kind of looking at other adults' work. You're kind of like, oh, is there some like, subtext there? Again, there's a critique happening. It's different with the high school regional. It's just all goodness, all love.
Yes, I love that. We're gonna pause and take a break for just a moment. So what are your suggestions for artists, like how they can get involved with the community and help out?
So, well, it's twofold, right? Because there's the arts community, and I think that we want to see a really diverse and inclusive arts community. I think that it hasn't necessarily been in the past. I do see it changing. It's slow. It's slow to change. Things like that, and it shouldn't be slow, but it is. So get involved, submit your work, go to different arts organizations. Even if you haven't been there, even if you're going by yourself and you're feeling a little anxious, I definitely feel anxious. Not that I have to be with somebody all the time, but going to a new place and checking out, the art there by being a patron, just be an art tourist. That helps immensely. People don't realize, I mean, people who are not in the arts field or an art appreciator or collector might say, oh, well, why are the arts even really that necessary? In a time of a pandemic, for example, I mean, the arts and culture organizations just, they lose funding almost immediately. They're sometimes the first ones to go and the last ones to have it restored. So they suffer greatly. And people say, well, when you're stacking that against human services, you know, I can understand. Well, I don't understand. Because when we're all locked inside our homes or stuck at home or what have you, what are we relying on to keep us sane? We're relying on the arts, right? And it's visual art, it's music, it's film, literature. All of that is art. So the next time somebody says, the arts aren't and moving forward. So what can artists do? What can people do to support the arts community? Go out, see shows, buy art locally from the artist. Um, a lot of times, what you're doing is you are putting money right into their pockets that they are using to put food on the table. Um, I mean, this is it. The reason why there are so many artists who have to have, a second or a third job, it's because they aren't getting the support that they need from their community. They're not able to sell their art as much as, they should be able to support themselves. So help them. And that money stays in your community. When you're buying art locally from artists in your community, they're then spending that money here. So, I mean, next time you're thinking about putting something on your wall that you order from like Z Gallery or some box store, stop for a second, go a couple more weeks with blank walls, and, go out into your community and see what's out there.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of things too that might not cost money that people can do that they just don't. And I'm like, social media, as toxic as it can also, on the other hand, be such a great tool and resource I don't want to be on social media, but that's how I get my art out there. And believe it or not, I've met a lot of really cool people.
Mhm.
And that's so amazing to me. I have one friend who's a model who has supported me and worked with me. I've known her for 2 years now, I think. And she's been more supportive and helpful to me than some people that I've known for, 10 plus years. And it takes 2 seconds to share somebody's work or to say, this person's really cool. I love them. Share it, even if you don't know them, or show a friend or whatever. Um, and that doesn't cost anything. That takes less than 2 seconds of your time. And that could mean a lot to somebody. So I think that as well as donating money to organizations and buying people's art. I know money is tight all around. I get that. Um,
Yeah.
but there's so many different things. And I'm not trying to say that, I'm a good person or better than somebody else, but I have work. That little doggy guy was a sticker. It cost me, I bought like, I think like 15 of them, like
Hmm.
all different ones. But like, that was like 25 bucks.
Yeah.
Like, you spend more than that on lunch. Like, make yourself a food at home and buy some stickers from an artist or buy a small painting or something. Artists are doing sales now a lot,
Mhm.
like, because people can't afford it and they want to get their art out. I'm guilty. I'm one of them. Like, so do it. Like,
No, I mean, honestly, that's the other thing is that people think, oh, art is, you know, so expensive and it's so expensive to be an art collector. It's not. I mean, like I said, go out into your community, you're going to see a lot of really cool stuff and it's totally affordable.
yeah.
When you think about, hey, I could have this really awesome piece of work of art and put it on my wall forever for 50 bucks, or I could, go and have a meal with my friends, which I'm going to
Yeah.
do anyway at some point.
Also, artists aren't these greedy, money hungry people. They are hungry people trying to make a living off of doing what they love. And it's hard to justify buying, I don't buy stuff for myself. I buy art supplies though. And that shit is expensive, guys.
I know.
Really expensive, okay? And I don't even buy the nicest stuff, but like, I don't I want to sell it at a reasonable price. And this is a whole nother thing that we could talk about for hours, pricing your work. But like, I want people to have it. People want to buy it, but it costs money to make. I can't give it to you. Don't ever ask an artist to lower their price or what can you do for me? We're friends and family. Just no, 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 no.
I mean, I get it. They just don't. I think a lot of times don't understand. So that's, I guess, another really good thing that artists can do to kind of further the arts like field in our area is when somebody asks for a deal or they're asking for something for free or they want to trade, just gently say, actually, this is my business and I'm trying to earn something off of what I put hundreds of hours into creating at a very reasonable price. I hope you'll buy it.
Absolutely. I agree. Um, so what are some other things that people can do? I know that things are closed, but any other types of things that like we can do from home to support the artists and art centers? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so here in the capital region, we have several arts organizations, but there are probably three big ones that come to mind for me, maybe even four, that I would say um, if you make an annual donation to them, maybe give it a little sooner because they're hurting now and it's not going to ease up anytime. We want people to stay employed. We want them to be able to put on all the awesome programs that we enjoy once they're allowed to open back up. Um, I would also say that look at some of the patron programs or ambassador or membership programs they have and ask yourself if you can get involved in some way. So right now at ACG at Albany Center Gallery, they're just launching an art ambassador program. So basically what that is hey, if you love what we do, you can help us raise money you know, whether that is selling some of your own art and donating the proceeds, or raffling off your art, or just even asking your friends and family to make some small donations. Um, we will consider you an art ambassador, and there's some benefits that go along with that. So that's interesting because arts and culture organization, I mean, every nonprofit right now has to get super creative about their fundraising, right? It was already competitive before the pandemic to raise money, but now it's even harder. Um, a lot of foundations have canceled their grants programs because they're focusing on supporting um, COVID 19 programs.
Yeah.
And that's not going to let up anytime soon. As we know, there's no vaccine. So people are going to still need support, especially with the unemployment rates as they are. So I don't see that funding coming back to arts and culture nonprofits for a long time. So if you want to support them, there are ways you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if it's still going on. I believe it is, but the Creative Impact Artist Fund, um, I was given one of them, and I put that on my website and posted about it. Um, and Alex and I both donated works to get raffled off. His already did, but you can go on my website or Albany Centers and buy raffle tickets. There's a bunch of other artists that are following suit, and that's an awesome way to, maybe you'll win a prize, but it's five. You can donate as little as $5 and buy as many raffle tickets as you want. And it goes to a great cause directly to artists. Um, but that was all made possible by these different artist organizations, and it couldn't happen without them, without their marketing, without their resources. So we need to give back to them as well. So raffling off, or even on Facebook, they have the for my birthday, donate to whatever. Like all of those are different things you could do.
The birthday club, I've done that for the past 3 years for ACG, and I love it because I don't need anything. I don't want anything, for my birthday. I mean, maybe shoot me a quick text message that says happy birthday or whatever. But, if somebody, I would rather that instead of them giving me a bottle of wine or whatever, just
Right.
make a donation.
Yeah, absolutely. I plan on doing, my birthday is coming up in a few weeks, and I plan on doing an art sale and having some of that go to different, places. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to work it out yet, but there's so many different things we can do for each other. And I think people just need to kind of put the guard down, and it doesn't need to be tit for tat. It needs to just be a willingness to help out your fellow artist, your fellow person, and kind of just give what you can. If it's money, great. If it's a like, cool. Like, just
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to do it.
Likes and comments are free. Sharing is free. And
Absolutely.
that's actually, I'm going to do some prints and sell them with the proceeds going to ACG as well. I did this kind of cool block print of a hawk. I was really hung up on hawks the last couple of years, birds of prey.
Awesome.
I did a whole series on Egyptian symbology, mostly around birds. So I've got this cool block print that I think if anybody wants one, I'll make it really reasonable and donate the proceeds.
Perfect. I'll put a link to that on the blog too. I think I have a few of those images available. But you also do consulting. Tell me a little bit about that. You clearly have a background in it. But tell me what you do and who you do it for and how to get in touch and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I've been consulting for about 10 years. My background is that I got a master's in nonprofit administration from University of San Francisco. I worked for Silicon Valley Community Foundation doing grant making, and then I went into development, which is fundraising for different organizations. And honestly, I just found myself being taken advantage of, I think is a good word or good phrase. As a female director of development, it was really difficult to have boundaries without being a quote unquote bitch. Um, it was difficult to be assertive without being called aggressive. I just found that being a female in leadership, again, you need to have that leather thick skin, and it made me very unhappy. So That's why I went into consulting, and I do fundraising, marketing, communications, board relations, and strategy for all sorts of nonprofits, not just arts and culture, but health and wellness, um, conservation, animal welfare, youth serving organizations, and it keeps it interesting. You know, I'm one of those people who has maybe a little bit of ADD when it comes to all the things I'm interested in. So I love working with all sorts of organizations because it kind of feeds that, you know, curiosity of mine. But in the same regard, it's also not a very stable field to be an independent consultant right now. Um, I lost 90% of my business in the pandemic. So I'm kind of like, well, that's cool. I have some savings. I'm actually in a better position than I think a lot of people are. And I'm very grateful for that. And I have time to work on art. So for me, it's not terrible. I would love to restore my contracts, but they will in time. It's just a really bad situation for a lot of people right now. But I do love it. You know, I love consulting. I love the independence. I love not having a boss. I love being my own boss and not having the stress of, you know, sort of dealing with a lot of competing personalities and agendas in the workplace. If that makes sense.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, is there any other parting words you have?
Hmm. I will say, you know, this keeps rolling around in my head, like that question about, you know, hey, how can people get involved? How can artists sort of support, you know, the arts right now or stay involved? You know, there's like I hear this all the time, and especially in a sort of a medium-sized metropolitan area like the capital region. There's a cool kids club. And I think it probably any arts community has that sense to it. So some people don't want to get involved because they feel like they're constantly shut out. Like the same artists have their work shown all the time. The same people win awards. The same people have articles written about them. And a lot of these people have been doing the same sort of rehashed work for a long time, or they haven't produced anything new, or it's a retrospective. And that's all good and well. Like, I support that. But we have to make room and space for emerging artists or other artists who have not had a voice, or they have been in the margins. So, to that end, I would say if you find yourself being super critical of the art that's out there or what's being shown, speak up, say something, get involved. Don't just go on Facebook and, you know, create some tirade about this organization or that person. Be a
Yeah.
part of the solution.
Yeah. And the best way to do that is to support the artists that you don't think are being supported. Tell your friends, have your friends support them. You know, there's a million and one different things that people can do, and complaining isn't one of them. That's not going to bring change. That's, you know, at most gonna start, you know, a trolling battle on Facebook, and we don't need that. There's so many other bigger problems in the world.
Yeah.
Um, People can really just support each other and stop being so snobby. Even
Yeah.
if you don't think that an artist has as good of work as you can still support them. It's not a competition. It's not.
Really not. Like, I don't know.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
We're all adults. Awards can be given to people, and as a person, I think that you should just be happy as opposed to being jealous. Your time will come. You just gotta put the right, I hate to say vibes, but like, you know, like put the right vibes out there.
Yeah. And
Support each
stop with the
other.
shade, right? Like throwing shade on other artists. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, there's something wrong there? Or complaining about your community, but then going to another community and doing work there. It's like, okay, well, you're going to complain about the community you're in, but not do anything to fix it.
Right.
Gotta-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, moral of the story, be better people. Be
Be better.
supportive. Um, support local business, support your fellow human. And yeah, yeah,
That sums it up, doesn't it?
yeah. This whole hour interview, just be better.
And we can just get right down to it by saying, don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Uh, make art and don't be a dick and share other people's art.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's it. 3 takeaways. Summed up in 5 seconds.
Well, thank you so much. I will link everything in the blog post that will go up on my website, and this is going to go up in the next hour or so. So I thank you for everything and everything you do for the community, and I hope to see you soon after all this is done.
Yeah, heck yeah. And thank you for doing this. I think it's super important and it's very helpful for the artists who are out there. So even when the pandemic ends, I hope that your podcast continues. So keep
So I
doing it.
do. I created this not to go on a long tangent, but for the exact reasons that we just talked about. Not just for myself, I don't want to be the face of it. I want to promote my friends and my fellow artists that might not get the spotlight. And even if it's just on my little platform, I've had people message me, that don't really have a following say, can I be on this? I want to talk about my work. And I'm like, hell yeah. Pass on here.
Yeah.
So anybody out there, anybody that I've talked to, haven't talked to, if I know you, no matter what your art form is, your experience level, I want you on here. I want to talk about you and celebrate you. So invite your friends, share the wealth, share the love, all that. Don't be a dick. Thanks, Jess. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.